then the bridge goes down, and then reporters want to take the story is made up the way they want to tell it. Most of the time, the officers are not even the same officers that's on the scene when it happened, when the slicing happened. They'll have another officer there who cannot answer.
Believe it or not.
However,
Believe it or not.
what they could do is open it up to the public. Let the public know, one, the finances that's going on in there. We have to, if you look on their website, Department of Corrections, you can't find a single actual fact because it's all spread out. They don't open it up for the public to understand, and then on top of that, they hold it away from society.
Mr. Karen, what do you think
The last
could be done to
commissioner, but
improve
before you
Riker?
do that, Bernie, the last commissioner we had who actually opened up Rikers Island to the press is sitting here. He's on this panel.
He was on. It was
He
in my
actually
documentary.
opened it up
And if you heard what
to
he was
the
saying,
press.
there was nothing that it was open.
Listen, okay, I ran the island for 5 years, and I did a better job than anybody in the history of the department.
Yeah, he was incarcerated himself in the same island. Come on, you're not better than
okay,
anybody.
hold on, I was not, all right? You should know
weren't?
no, I was not.
You weren't incarcerated.
I was incarcerated,
Oh, no, not
not
on
in
Rikers,
Rikers.
but you thought you're saying.
Okay, could I finish?
No,
Okay,
he
go ahead.
said, what he said was he did it better than anybody else.
So
He did not
here's-
say he
In
was
his time, there
better
was a
than
lot of
anybody else.
slashings. There was a lot of drugs being brought in onto the island. There
Let
was a
him
lot of
speak,
weapons being
please.
brought into the
Let him
island.
speak, please.
Less than now.
Here's the
Yeah, less than
reality.
now.
Less than now.
Yeah.
The problem
Less
with
than now?
Rikers
No,
today,
it's not.
the problem with Rikers today
That's because they weren't being.
is violence, mismanagement, and corruption. You can move those inmates to China, and you're still gonna have the same problem. You need programs and you need policies to change the violence, corruption,
change the
mismanagement.
officers who have a culture
And you
of
need to be
violence.
quiet while
You
other
have to
people are
change the
talking.
officers.
Exactly.
They're not trained.
So that's what you need. You can shut down Rikers.
Because the
Keep in
officers
mind,
on your
the
facility-
mayor's initial argument to shut it down
officers in your facility,
was based on the
they said
violence.
that,
Wait,
was
wait,
based-
let Mr. Carrick speak, please.
It was based on the corruption, and it was based on mismanagement. That has to change. I don't care where you put the inmates. It's not gonna change if you don't change the policies and programs. That's what the mayor should focus on. Not moving the inmates, not closing Rikers. He needs to fix the agency.
When you talk about corruption, what do you mean exactly? Where is the corruption and what is the corruption?
We've seen numerous elements of corruption with staff, drugs, weapons, contraband,
Rape.
maybe rape. I haven't heard any, but maybe rape. There's corruption within the system. That has to be addressed. Mismanagement, that has to be addressed. Violence has to be addressed. When you have inmates that are slashing and stabbings, slashing and stabbing, when you have inmates that take feces and urine and throw it in the face of staff, I mean literally stick their hand under their behind, defecate in their hand, and rub it in the face of a correctional officer or another inmate, well, that's a problem. And that stuff's gotta stop.
But why hasn't it stopped? You said there was a 93% reduction when you were running.
Listen, I
How
can't,
did that stop with you?
I'd let Elias talk about that because he was there when I was
Okay.
there and he was there when I left. You know what? It goes back to the old saying, if it's not broke, don't fix it. The policies changed, the programs changed, and the island imploded. That's what happened. And Elias can talk to that.
You wanna speak to that?
Yeah, let me. In 1957, there was a commissioner named Anna M. Cross. 1957, she wrote a paper. And in her document, in her paper, she was complaining about the homeless that were in jail. She was complaining about the mentally ill that was in jail. This is 1957. Here we are, 2018, sitting on this panel, and what are we talking about? Listen, the fact of the matter is, this is America. It's a capitalist society, and there's always going to be crime, and there's always going to be inmates, and there are always going to be correctional officers. What we have to do is figure out a way to make this place as humane as possible. Listen, you're looking at someone who has 5 brothers and 2 sisters, or 5 of my brothers have come through Rikers Island. Hell, when I was working in AMKC, 2 of them was in there at the same time. My sister just came home from doing 5.5 in jail and spent 2 years on Rikers. So I understand the stories. At the end of the day, either we're going to figure out a couple of things. One, how do we keep them out of jail? That's easy. Take the $30 billion and invest it in the infrastructure of the community. That's one. Number two, how do we keep them out of jail? Take the $30 billion, because that's a lot of money. When you spend $30 billion on 4 jails, and you spend $300,000 on 2 facilities to house 16 and 17-year-olds, and then I heard the young lady here said that they have a facility in the Bronx that's closed. Yeah, it's closed. And what are they waiting to open it? They're waiting to get some 16 and 17-year-olds, some African-American, Latino kids, and lock them up. Look, at the end of the day, should some of this stuff be coming from me? Hell no. I'm the president of the Correction Officers Union. But at the end of the day, understand something. 65% of New York City correction officers live in New York City, in the 5 boroughs. So it's to our advantage to have safe streets. It's to our advantage to have inmates, detainees, whatever the hell you want to call them, come home better than when they left. So at the end of the day, I'm on this panel to say, listen, do I agree with everything that I hear coming from Hakeem or from the sister from the Oslo? Hell no. I don't agree with everything. There's some of the things that I agree with. At the end of the day, we need to stop playing politics with the lives of everybody, Horizon has 72 16 and 17-year-olds. 95% of them are remanded. They don't even have a bail. And they're not going home. And the RFK Foundation couldn't bail them out if they wanted to. So we have to figure out what we're going to do. We can sit here and have this age-old conversation about how bad jail is. Jail has always been bad, and it's going to always be bad. Nobody's going to change that because of the people that we have in these facilities. Now, the truth of the matter is the inmate population is lower now than it's been in decades. It is lower now than it's been in decades.
And why do we hear about all this violence now that seems to have
Look,
increased?
you guys listen to the Post and the Daily News and all the papers, and you guys look at it and say, oh, why are we hearing about? Yes. Do we have violence in jail? People, we have violence in jail. We have violence in jail. And it's going to happen. And you need to get used to it. It's not going to change. That is a part of the jail culture. There are people who say we created the culture. We don't have to create the culture. Let me ask you a question. The kids that were killed in the school in the Bronx, does the school have a culture of violence? Does the school have a culture of violence? But kids are murdered in school. They're stabbed. They're shot. They're shot and murdered in the community. Is there a culture of violence in the community? Did the community create the culture of violence? But we want to blame correction officers for creating a culture of violence when you send us nothing but violent people for the most part.
You said we want to blame correction officers. Nobody said we want to blame correction officers. I'm asking you, I asked you about violence, and it seems to be that we have fewer inmates, but we get more reports of violence. In this case, you had something you wanted to add.
Let me answer you. And it's somebody down that end said it. Understand something. And I'll just use the facts. The 72, 16, and 17-year-olds in Horizon, they are the more violent 16 and 17-year-olds. Understand, they are, 99% of them are gang members. So one of the things is that when you don't have turnstile jumpers in jail, when you don't have open container people in jail, when you don't have somebody in jail because they broke a window, well, who did you have? You're sending us the more violent people. You're sending us people who are arrested for the more violent, more serious crimes. And then you're asking a question like, why is it so violent? Well, why the hell do you think it's so violent?
Can I get this, please?
Well,
Can I just?
So actually, what really should be said is, what is the Department of Corrections? Care, custody, and control. Do your freaking job. Care, custody, and control. Just like police, CPR, courtesy, professionalism, service, whatever it is, do your job. Care, custody, and control. These kids do not have the experience as adults do to actually give the care, custody, and control. However, that's why we put them in OCFS, right? OCFS was supposed to, well, one, they have the experience to take care of these kids, not beat them up. What we actually heard, when we heard of the violence in Horizons, what we heard also was that the officers got beat up. Come on, please, their hands were wrapped because they punched the kids in the face. I was a part of the one that was bailing them out. And you said we can't bail them out, but we did bail out 68 people. Don't tell me we can't actually.
From Horizon. Now
I did a bail, and I put it on social media. When I bailed them out, I bailed them out. I have it on my social media.
You bailed out.
But this is the
Please,
culture.
Horizon, we
You're
won't
saying
have
it.
anybody there.
Please.
We only have
So
7
you're saying I didn't bail out
Listening to
anyone?
each
I'm
other.
not saying you didn't bail.
Okay,
You didn't
so
bail
that's
out
what I said.
68.
That's what I said.
You said you bailed out
And I did,
68
and you can see it.
from Horizon.
And
Here's
you
the
can see it
thing.
live. I did it live.
Speak
That's a
over
lie.
them because they
I
think
did it
it's
live.
hard
It's
to
not
among
true.
themselves.
Initially,
It's like they're
Osborne has
all
been
fighting,
on
right?
Rikers Island providing
They're all
services
fighting, right?
for longer than you've been alive and for longer than you've worked at DOC. These things happen, I understand it. There's a lot we could do with the culture. When I wasn't paying attention to close Rikers because even if that was the silver bullet, it wouldn't happen for so long that I agree with Elias. That doesn't mean we have to deal with what we've got right now. And I agree with you, things around management and how things happen. Before they moved anybody off Rikers Island, Osborne ran a program for 3 years at RNDC for 16 to 18-year-olds. The violence, we were told by DOC while we were there, occupying kids all day with everything from cognitive behavioral therapy to all kinds of skills building, and they were in classrooms with us, the violence went down. There are,
It works.
it does,
It works when you do
I'm
it.
not disagreeing with you, and either with, whatever happens with borough jails or not borough jails, for Rikers Island right now, the conditions under which we work, under which they work, and under which people live are not acceptable.